It's showtime.
It's the pre-party with J. Cal.
We are professional wrestling.
I'm building an alliance.
You are tuned into
The absolute top of the mountain, the ultimate professional wrestling.
Alliance-wrestling.com.
As always, what is up, guys? This is the pre-party, a presentation of Alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. I just saw a sign that said no sound. Michael Elliott, if you're still here, do you hear sound now? Of course. There's only one way to find out, right? Test. 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. All right. So we got sound. Beautiful. That means we're on the right track. Just like the United Wrestling Network is on the right track. Gosh, what an exciting time to be a fan of the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. Now, before we get into tonight's stacked card, is it stacked? I'm not sure if it is stacked. Before we get into it tonight, why am I only seeing that? Okay. All right, so we got Woodland Goblin in the house. Terry McDermott's in the house. We got Michael Elliott in the house. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, of course. And we're also streaming on twitch.tv at the Alliance blog. I would appreciate you guys joining us. Again, we're here to talk NWA with you, the hashtag NWA fam. Now, before we get into today's stacked show, right? We're gonna get into some of the news that's been happening around the National Wrestling Alliance. Of course, I think it should be noted. I think that we should talk about Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has a new executive producer. Now, before you get all worried and before you get all upset, what this means, well, I think it's a good thing, number one. First and foremost, Nick Bonanno is a trusted member of the United Wrestling Network family, as well as one of David Marquez's close personal partners in producing this Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He's played a vital role from being the main referee for the United Wrestling Network to also, being the guy who counts the three. When they went to China, he was the main referee. He reffed the whole show. Besides that, he's also a line producer in Hollywood. He helps out with talent. If you guys have ever seen one of the shows, you might only recognize Nick's face as the head referee, the head official in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, but behind the scenes, he's constantly getting backstage promos taken care of, making sure talent knows what's going to be happening on these events, and adding him as an executive director will allow Dave Marquez to take a step back from producing Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and be able to focus that time, effort, and energy into new products and new shows. Well, of course, he's still going to be the main main producer for the Primetime Live show, as he said so much in his comments, indicating that he was leaving Hollywood. But this also allows him to search for new business opportunities with that Championship Wrestling methodology. So if you guys aren't familiar, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is kind of the signature program of the United Wrestling Network until the pay-per-view series. In Hollywood, that show is syndicated all across the country. It was in different markets all over the U.S. But then they took it a step further. They added an additional show in Arizona. Now, these two shows are completely different. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Championship Wrestling from Arizona. Now, Dave Marquez has been almost hands-off on the group in Arizona, and now he's hands-off on the group in Hollywood. But the thing I want to add about Hollywood is that program is repackaged in market-specific areas. So, like in Memphis, you see a different version of the Championship Wrestling from the Hollywood show that includes like local hosts, and graphics are somewhat different, but all in all, it's the same show. Now, David Marquez has this opportunity that he won't be a part of producing the Hollywood show, and he'll still have this opportunity now to go on and try to get the Hollywood TV show in more markets and make that more of a tool to help, again, get that United Wrestling Network promotion out there. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. Of course, I'm excited to see what's next for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I've talked to Nicholas Bonanno many times. I consider him a friend. I'm very proud of his accomplishments in Hollywood, and I think he's going to do a great job. It should also be noted that Dave Marquez used to direct the show in Hollywood for many, many years until, I want to say, like maybe the last 2 or 3 years, where he stepped aside and promoted Billy Trash to the head director. Now, Billy also directs NWA Power that when that show was on air. So it's been a long time coming, but you can see Dave Marquez kind of slowly pulling back the reins and allowing his team to take over, which I think is going to be instrumental. That's not the right word. It's going to be important to the growth of not only the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood brand, but also United Wrestling Network. So the other news coming out of the pro wrestling world via Chris, sorry, I got an itchy ear there, via Chris Van Vilet, on his show, he spoke to former NWA Women's World Champion, former WWF Women's Champion, Jazz, as you can see here. And Jazz announced her retirement from in-ring competition. Now that's kind of a lot of people might be, sorry, I'm kind of lost here. A lot of you might have thought Jazz might have already retired, to be quite honest. But she had been making a few appearances on the independent scene. She did show up in AEW recently. But Jazz was a champion for work rate women's wrestling. When Jazz broke into the business, pro wrestling, when it came to women, was basically eye candy and honestly a bathroom break. The matches weren't competitive. The talent wasn't there. It was mostly it was garbage. Now Jazz broke into the scene. Well, let's take it back even further.
Jazz kind of got her reputation, made her name in ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, and she joined the national landscape by becoming a part of the entourage for the Impact players. Impact players were Lance Storm and Just Incredible, and they would be flanked by Jason Knight and of course Jazz. Now, during the course of this show, Jazz would eventually become a rival to Jason Knight, and they would have these intergender matches. Now, this was the first time that a major promotion was kind of promoting women versus men matches. This was around the time, not the same time, but around the time that Medusa was wrestling in WCW against men, and eventually challenging for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship and winning it. But while Jazz was there performing at ECW, her story didn't end after the feud with Jason Knight. She started teaming with guys on the roster, wrestling other men, Steve Corino, Chris Chetty, and it goes on. And she never took a step back. She never looked weak in the course of this. Of course, during the time between her joining the WWE roster, she was back in Southwest, working in Texas promotions, working for NWA Southwest. It was at this time she gets signed by the WWE. I think we're looking about 2002. In less than 6 months of being on the roster, she wins the Women's World Championship on an episode of Raw by defeating Trish Stratus. She was able to defend that title against Trish Stratus and Lita at WrestleMania X8. And that was in Ontario, Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And then later on, after she would lose the title, she'd go on to regain the championship. And this time she defeated Trish Stratus at Backlash 2003. So she has, her WrestleMania moment. She had this time in the WWE, and but that didn't end her career because, of course, like I said, she started in the NWA Southwest. She was under the tutelage of Rod Price and, of course, her husband, Rodney Mack. And while she was wrestling in the Southwest, she'd come back to the NWA after leaving the WWE, wrestling for Cyberspace, NWA Cyberspace, where she'd win the Women's Championship by defeating April Hunter. This was like a 2005 era. And more as she would wrestle and progress, she would work these independent shows with occasional appearances with the WWE's version of ECW, but nothing consistent, nothing concrete. Eventually, she would come back to the NWA for what would be like a fourth time. This time, she would defeat Amber Gallows and Christy Jane in a three-way match in Sherman, Texas for NWA Texoma. This would be the time she would win that illustrious Women's World Championship and really would reinvigorate the title and the division. Now, she was off to a good start. I mean, she went to Japan, defended the title against Heidi Katrina for the Arena Mikado 10th anniversary show. She would head to NWA Big Apple, which was the New York affiliate of the NWA at the time, and would defend against future champion Thunder Rosa. So the title was on this basically a resurgence, and then that's when things got really muddy because Bruce Tharpe and Billy Corgan had entered negotiations to buy the NWA or sell the NWA, depending on the perspective you're looking at. Oh, and hey, we got a Lamb is just like the stream. Thanks for liking the stream, Lamb. So then Jazz has this opportunity now to defend the NWA Women's World Championship, but the NWA itself is in flux. We don't know what's going to happen yet. We keep hearing about Billy Corgan, Lightning One, efforting to buy the NWA, and as it turns out, we don't get the matches that we wanted to get because the title took a stall. And so when the title stalled because of the NWA in flux, we didn't know what was going to happen next. It was announced on October 2nd that October 2nd, 2017, all NWA titles would be sealed with the exception of the world's heavyweight champion, who at that point was Tim Storm. So fast forward a year to the 70th anniversary show, the NWA begins to recognize the women's champion without crowning a new champion, without going through the tournament.
they recognize Jazz. She has the only distinction of being recognized as champion after the NWA had froze all those titles. They stripped the former champions. They stripped Cahagas, who was the national champion. They stripped the Heatseekers, who were the former tag team champions. They stripped Mustang Mike, who was the North American champion. And they never have even recognized Barrett Brown as the World Junior Heavyweight Champion. So there was this stall pattern that again changes on the 70th anniversary show. And as that 70th anniversary show starts to kick off, Jazz is successful, gets right back on the horse where she was, defeats Penelope Ford, retains the title, then she goes on to face other wrestlers like Jordan Grace and Heather Monroe, and starts performing at a high level. We're expecting these great things for Jazz, and then unfortunately, due to injury and some personal issues, she forfeits the title just ahead of the Crockett Cup 2019. But as champion, she would hold that title for 948 days. That's a feat that I don't think we're going to see on any title. Maybe Nick Aldis can reach that soon. I mean, he's already surpassed 700 days as world's heavyweight champion. But I don't foresee another champion being able to take that title for, a full 3 years. And it looks like, maybe Thunder Rosa, she's on a hot streak right now. But again, that's something that is very, 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 very respectful and certainly Hall of Fame worthy. So I wanted to get into that. Now, of course, Primetime Live, normally I like to have a primer written up to set up the show. But this week, just the time has not been great, and I wasn't able to get one ready to go. And NWA Gold points out that this was the third longest reign after the Fabulous Moolah and Combs. I can't remember Combs' first name. So again, I want to say thanks for everyone for joining the show today. We got Terry McDermott, Dave Scooby, and NWA Gold. And Terry McDermott says Barrett Brown should be reinstated as World Junior Heavyweight Champion, and you're speaking to the choir, Mr. McDermott. I 100% back you up on that statement. Barrett Brown is so underrated, and I really felt like he didn't get his fair share as World Junior Heavyweight Champion. Woodland Goblin, help me out. Thank you. Debbie Combs was the other long-ranking women's champion. So, what's good with y'all? Oh, I didn't hit the transition button. Sorry about that. So what's good with y'all? Let me get some water here. Okay. So, tonight is Primetime Live. And there other good news about Primetime Live is that we now know we have a new price point. We know that we're getting the pay-per-view package again. This time it's a little bit more expensive. It is not going to be it's not going to be the $23.99. It's going to be the $24.99. Which, again, at the end of the day, if you don't perceive value for the money that you spent for Primetime Live, I'm not exactly sure what to tell you. Because for $24.99, you're still getting 4 weeks of wrestling, 90 minutes each week, which I think comes out to between 5 to 7 matches each week. When you start breaking down the math, you're talking about, $1 a match or 75 cents, something like that. I know I'm not the world's greatest mathematician, but it's not very much money. And I get it, because you know what, we're all on budgets right now. We're all, dealing with this global pandemic. We're all dealing with finances, and it's hard. But if you support the product will continue to grow. And I definitely know this, that the rumors of NWA Power coming back are 100% driven by the reaction that United Wrestling Network Primetime Live is getting. 100%. Because if it wasn't for the NWA getting this breath of fresh air by having Nick Aldis defend against Miracle Mike Bennett, if it wasn't for Thunder Rosa being able to defend her title against Priscilla Kelly on the Primetime Live, if it wasn't for Trevor Murdoch capturing the National Heavyweight Championship from Aaron the Shooter Stevens on Primetime Live, then there wouldn't be a lot to talk about with the NWA, and it would have given Billy Corgan all the reason in the world to shut the doors down completely. But because the hashtag NWA fam is still talking about the NWA, because we're still highlighting matches with those NWA championships inside the NWA and outside of the NWA, this is getting the talk about Power to come back. And I, for one, can't wait. I can't wait, guys. If you're not excited about this stuff, I don't know what to tell you. $24.99 for 4 weeks of TV comes out to about, I guess that's like $8 a show. I'm doing my math right? No. $6 a show. Still a pretty good deal. If you order today, you get a $2 credit for future pay-per-views through Fight TV, and again, that can be used to future United Wrestling Network pay-per-views or Impact, Ring of Honor, even AEW. You can apply those credits later, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. Now, I am prepared to kind of go over some of these matches that are going to be appearing on Primetime Live, but I have a feeling that that Woodland Goblin might know a lot more about Viperous than I do, but we'll get to her momentarily. First, I want to talk about Chris Dickinson and Max Caster. Now, first of all, Chris Dickinson has been a breath of fresh air. I know he's not everyone's favorite. I know his language can be crude. I know ultimately his thirst for competition could turn a lot of people off. But I'm telling you right now, I believe he is the breakout star of Primetime Live. I had only heard of Chris Dickinson's name in passing prior to Primetime Live, but now I'm well aware of who he is. I'm well aware of what he's capable of, and I know that he's going to be bringing to the table something that is going to be really, really big. Now his matchup tonight is against Max Caster. I don't know a whole lot about Max Caster, to be honest with you. I had to do some research. I know he is new to the United Wrestling Network. I know that he is a free agent who's was trained by the Creative Pro Wrestler Academy. He's held the Creative Pro Wrestling Academy Championship and is a former tag team champion with Bobby Orlando. I know that he spent some time in the Dojo Wars with CZW. Now that's kind of like this a live show where the students of the Combat Zone Wrestling dojo can start working live matches to get better before they actually appear in the CZW regular shows. We know that Caster has made appearances there, and he's actually been able to perform in front of the CZW crowds. Most recently, you'd see Caster appear on AEW, teaming with Serpentino and Luther to take on the Jungle Express. He also had a match against Shawn Spears that was said to be pretty good. I don't watch AEW, so I don't know how good that match was. Maybe one of you guys in the comments could tell me if that was a good match, if that's worth me checking out. And like I said, Chris Dickinson, the filthy father, the dirty daddy. I mean, he's got 2 wins on Primetime Live. He recently debuted for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And of course, he's got more face time on Primetime Live than just about anybody else, whether it be telling the world how terrible Jervis Cottonbelly is or having 2 matches in back-to-back weeks. Now, this will be the 3rd match. Will have wrestled more times on Primetime Live than anybody else. So go ahead and attach that franchise label to his name. Next up, we have Brian Idol taking on Levi Shapiro. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Brian Idol either. I know that he's based out of New York, and I was trying to get some information on him. Sorry. This is where I would prefer to have been more prepared for today. He's wrestled for FTW, which is based on the East Coast. His name then was Earl Cooter. He wrestled as recently as the 19th as part of the Team Vision Dojo in Florida. I'm not a big fan of the Team Vision Dojo, and I kind of wish I didn't acknowledge it. He's wrestled for Florida Independent Pro Wrestling, again in 2019. Shared a ring with Blue Demon Jr. and Brandon Kirk as he teamed with El Hijo de Wagner Jr. And that was in New York City as part of the a lucha show that was taking place there. So I don't know a whole lot about Brian Idol. He has a great look for sure, and I'm not sure what he's going to be able to do here in Primetime Live. His opponent is Levi Shapiro, and we last saw Levi Shapiro wrestling Dan Joseph, the United Wrestling Network TV champion, and in that matchup, he failed to get the victory. There seemed to be some issues with that match altogether, and that didn't really quite pan out. I'm hoping to see something better for Levi Shapiro this week with Howdy Price. I'm hoping to see something a little bit more concrete as opposed to the last match that they had. We'll see. We also know that, gosh, sorry, I'm not on my game today. Bear with me just for a second. We also know that 4 Minutes of Heat will be appearing on the show. They are currently the Defy Tag Team Champions. No opponents have been named just yet, nor do we know if the titles will even be on the line. They have made appearances for Black Label Wrestling, I believe that's the name, based out of I want to say Indiana. Obviously, I am really not connected right here. We're expecting them to have a match tonight. We've also seen prior to tonight's show that Ricardo Rodriguez recently posted on Twitter that he is in the house. No word if he's going to be working behind the stage or in front of the camera. He recently has been a part of the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Again, we're not sure if that's behind the scenes or if that's going to be in front of the camera. We really will have to just wait and kind of see. Next up, we have the Future Stars of Wrestling Women's Champion Lacey Ryan defending against Woodland Goblin's very own Vikress. Now, both of these names are new to the Primetime Live, but maybe not for those of you who've been watching wrestling for a while. Of course, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has more or less become the home for Lacey Ryan. She's been involved in a best-of-7 series with Heather Monroe, and she's been quite a fan favorite in Hollywood. The series now is locked up to 2-2, with their most recent match ending in a no contest, which was a taped fist match, which led to a lot of, let's just say, if you watch Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, things got a little dicey there because of this match. She recently competed in a dark match for Ohio Valley Wrestling. Ohio Valley Wrestling in the past used to be a direct pipeline to the World Wrestling Entertainment. That's not the case anymore, but there's still a lot of benefit to working for Ohio Valley. They have TV in that market as well. Ryan won her Women's Championship by defeating Impact Wrestling's Taya Valkyrie, and that was nearly a year ago. She also is a former Utah Championship Wrestling Zero, Ultra Championship Wrestling Zero. They called it the Ultra X Championship. Now that's a title that's predominantly held by men, but she broke again the gender barriers and was able to capture that title. And if you don't know, UCW Zero is also affiliated with United Wrestling Network and Primetime Live. Now Vipress, again, this is where I would hand the mic to Wooden Goblin if he were here. She in the past has teamed with Priscilla Kelly, and she's an on-again, off-again tag team partner with Ruby Reyes, both of whom competed in Colorado just this last weekend. Reyes made her debut on Primetime Live last week in very convincing fashion. In the past, Vipress has competed for the Crash in Mexico. She's competed for Evolve and Shine. Again, I'm not really sure how she will be used today. I'm not sure, we're expecting just a regular matchup, but this will make the debut for her on Primetime Live. So we've already got some pretty loaded matches as we're going on. Woodland Goblin said Lacey Ryan is a good athlete, but her promo yesterday was a bit green. And yeah, and that's part of the problem. Again, some of these talents are more seasoned than others. You need the opportunity to showcase. You need the opportunity to be in front of the camera. You need to be coached. Again, these are things that should be happening in Hollywood. They'll continue to grow. I think Lacey Ryan has a lot of potential. She's looked really good in Hollywood. Dave Scooby saying Limelight and Pablo Esco need to go after 4 minutes of heat. And that match might actually happen because I don't know if you guys are also on Twitter, but Danny Limelight indicated that he might be showing up tonight on Primetime Live. So maybe he and Pablo Esco maybe filling in for, not filling in, but making his second appearance on Primetime Live. We still haven't gotten that match. We were supposed to have Pablo Esco versus Ray Rosas before Ray Rosas started making his appearances for AEW. So we'll see what else happens. The match that I'm most excited about would be the I would imagine this is the main event, but no one's told me directly if this is the main event, and it's hard for me to try to assume anything because when the United Wrestling Network, some of the matches I thought would be preliminary matches turn out to be main event matches, but we have Zicky Dice and a mystery partner taking on Watts and the Pope. Now, the thing that I want to point out about Watts is, number one, had a hell of a show, hell of a match against Eli Drake on the second episode of Primetime Live. But tonight, he's going to magically appear in two places at once because he's going to be at AEW, their YouTube show, in a match teaming with Ray Rosas. And he's also going to be here in Long Beach teaming with Pope. The Pope. Now, the exciting thing about that is the Pope is a guy who, for all intents and purposes, most people thought was retired. He had his run in Impact, where then he kind of transitioned to the announce booth. And when he showed up on NWA Power, again, he never stepped into the ring for competition. He was more looking for his horsemen. He was involved with the angle that set up Eddie Kingston to feud with the Zane brothers, and then eventually against the Bruisers from Ring of Honor. Now, we were expecting a match to show, maybe not a match, but we were expecting something to happen with Kingston and the Pope. Now, I'm just reading tea leaves here. I have no idea, but maybe the idea all along, maybe the plan all along, was to bring Watson under the tutelage of the Pope, and maybe he would have feuded with Eddie Kingston. Now, the wrestling would have been great, and the promos would have been off the hook, because we know the Pope, well, he never met a microphone he didn't like, and of course, Eddie Kingston is one of the best when it comes to cutting a promo. So it would have been a very interesting encounter, an interesting entanglement, if you will. Of course, that never happened because now Eddie Kingston's with AEW. But the real caveat to all this is this mystery opponent. I mean, let's talk about Zicky Dice, right? Because first and foremost, many people were disputing whether Zicky Dice was even still in the NWA after the report from after the report from Fightful, because I forget the guy's name, that indicated Zicky Dice asked for his release and was not granted. And many people thought that there was some animosity between the NWA and Zicky Dice. A lot of people were speculating on things that they really didn't know. But at the end of the day, the NWA television champion is returning to a NWA product, NWA pay-per-view, the United Wrestling Network in conjunction with the NWA. I mean, he's here, and they are recognizing him as the NWA champion. They did not recognize Eli Drake as the NWA Tag Team Champion, so there is that. And he has a mystery tag team partner. Who is that mystery tag team partner? Now, there's some speculation that it would be Effie. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about Effie. There was some speculation that it would be Enzo Amore. I think Enzo Amore would certainly turn more heads and garner more attention, but I don't know if that's needed. Because Zicky Dice, I mean, I read your guys' comments, I see it on Twitter. Zicky Dice is one of these perplexing guys who just gravitates eyeballs. He just pulls them in, and people always tend to watch when Zicky Dice is on camera. People want more of Zicky Dice. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen for tonight. And again, not 100% sure on who this partner is, but based on the formula of last or 2 weeks ago, Watts and Eli Drake, I can only imagine that this match is going to be hard-hitting. Now, Zicky Dice is no stranger to the United Wrestling Network. He's wrestled on Freelance Pro Wrestling. He's wrestled in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. In fact, he's been in Hollywood quite consistently. So this will be fun to see him show up here on Primetime Live. And again, that TV title in tow, you guys will finally get to see that title return to pay-per-view. Of course, he's not defending it tonight, but who knows what might happen. Again, you want to go to Fight TV and order tonight's pay-per-view. If you haven't done so already, it's $7.99 for tonight's episode. I still believe you can buy the 4-pack bundle for the $23.99. If you haven't seen the first 3 episodes, it might be worth your time to do that. Now, just seeing some more of your guys' comments here. Will and Goblin said the Vipers also filled in for Heather Monroe against Lacey Ryan in one of the best of 7 matches. You know, you're right. I do remember that. I do recall that. I guess I just blocked that out of my mind. So this would not make Vipers' debut for the United Wrestling Network. So that's good, kind of good to know. Dave Scooby says the Pope can still go and can be the voice for Watts if they decide to team them up for a while. And again, you know, I don't know what direction the NWA is going to go when it comes back. We don't know if they're going to go direct to pay-per-view. We don't know if they're going to put NWA Power behind a pay window. But if, let's just say, they decide to kick off the NWA after the pandemic break, the pandemic pause, if you will, and bring back the Crockett Cup. I mean, over the last few weeks, let's look at some of the tag teams that we've seen on Primetime Live. We have the Tribe. We have the Wolf Zaddies. We have the tag team champion, United Wrestling Network tag team champions in the SoCal Distancing. We have the Real Money Brothers. And now it looks like this new formation between the Pope and Watts. I mean, there's some pretty decent tag teams right then and there. So again, if the NWA decides to relaunch the NWA with a pay-per-view, I mean, they can slide right back into the Crockett Cup. I mean, I'm only speculating, but a matchup with Miracle Mike Bennett versus Nick Aldis. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Nick Aldis, Mike Bennett Part 2? You throw in Thunder Rosa versus Allison Kay because, again, Allison Kay is knocking on that door. And then you have your tournament right there. Boom, that's a pay-per-view. Call me, Billy. My phone's always open for you. Woodland Goblin also corrected me again. Vipers defeated CC Chanel on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So again, I stand corrected. My knowledge of Vipers isn't as high as it should be, but we know that Woodland Goblin's got us taken care of. So thank you, Woodland Goblin. And then Dave Scooby says, I can see Watts going after the TV title a gold in a singles rematch in a few weeks, and I would be all for that. Watts is one of these guys who I genuinely can appreciate. He's been involved with United Wrestling Network dating back to when it was NWA Hollywood. He had matches against Scrap Iron Adam Pearce for the 10 pounds of gold. He was the hired muscles for the Family Stone. And again, you guys have to be watching for a long time to recognize that name. And as his career has grown with the NWA, so his propensity to win championship. He's a former United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions. He held the Hollywood Heritage title, and it looked like he was getting ready to make a long run with that title until he was defeated by Ray Rosas, and it was kind of a surprise victory. So I'm going to say this, that again, if you guys haven't ordered Primetime Live, you definitely want to do that, because again, the shows have been so good, and it's been a lot of fun. And I definitely would recommend that. Excuse me. Let me get some water. What did you guys think of last week's victory with Trevor Murdoch? I was blown away. So, a lot of people have recently been asking me about merchandise, and at the Alliance blog, we have always been reluctant to sell merchandise because, again, your currency is your attention, your eyeballs. You're watching these shows, these live YouTube streams, listening to the podcast, visiting the website alliance-wrestling.com has really been all that we've needed for growth. But the demand has been there for releasing products much like this hat or the t-shirts that you've seen me wear in the past. I want to let you know that I know sweater season is upon us, and that if you guys are interested, we are now selling alliance-wrestling.com sweaters with this logo that you see right here behind me, or you don't see it behind me now. If you're interested, you can go to alliance-wrestling.com and just check out the merch section. And you can get a sweater, you can get a baseball cap, you can get a coffee cup, you can get t-shirts. And Woodland Goblin says the best main event so far has been Murdoch versus Stevens. I really like Thunder Rosa versus Priscilla Kelly, but I'm right there with you. Murdoch Stevens certainly had that moment that created history, created something unique. Again, that was the first title to change hands in Long Beach at the Thunder Studios for Primetime Live. It was the first time that we had a continuation of an NWA Power storyline hit us at Primetime Live. Terry McDermott says it was great to see Trevor and Aaron in a match. He likes them both. Dave Scooby says cross-body press from Trevor was amazing. I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. So, I know it's a bit early, guys, but we're going to wrap it up today. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching this show, making the pre-party part of your Tuesday afternoons just ahead of Primetime Live. Again, the show would be so less fun with you guys not being here. So I'm glad that you guys make sure to be here every Tuesday and join in on the conversation. Of course, Primetime Live airs at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the Fight TV app, or of course you can get it on DirecTV or in demand, depending on whatever pay-per-view platform you choose to use. You can follow us at the Alliance blog on all social medias. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Of course, you're watching us either on Twitch, YouTube, or Facebook right now. We appreciate you guys supporting the product, supporting the brand. Genuinely appreciate you guys being a part of the show. You can join me Thursday nights with DKM and former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Kevin Douglas as we do a review of tonight's Primetime Live. Plus, we'll talk about more NWA news and information. And then, of course, Wednesday, join me and Will Martin on Instagram Live as we talk a little Friday hot tag. We do that at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 Pacific. And, of course, the Alliance Guys podcast airs on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. But please join us for all your NWA and United Wrestling Network talk. And, of course, please check out my friends later tonight after Primetime Live, and that would be the NWA podcast. You can follow them at, or you can check them out on YouTube at the NWA Pod, and make sure you give them a watch and follow. But that's going to do it. Guys, you're the best. I appreciate you, and I'll see you gentlemen at the matches. Wait, at the matches.